All right, hello. We're here with Dr. Willie Spires, the Dean of General Studies here at Chipola. And Willie, we're today, our purpose is to discuss mental health awareness and issues related to mental health in the Chipola College community.
Sure.
So what I want to do is I want to ask you just a few questions about mental health, and we can go in a lot of different directions here, but I think there are a lot of questions that the faculty and staff have with respect to mental health, and so I'm just going to ask you some of these questions,
Sure.
and you help us.
Okay.
What are the most significant stressors that we see among college students?
Okay, sure. Some of the things that we see among college students, we're kind of a macrocosm of the general population, but we see a lot of issues with depression, anxiety, relationship issues, even suicidal kinds of ideations that
Okay.
students have. Some of the most common ones, but we also see some personality disorders, some bipolar disorders, things of this nature.
Okay. And now, if you're teaching class, and I know you teach a lot of psychology classes, what would you recommend that an instructor do if a college student has some sort of a breakdown during a class?
Okay. I'll share with you an experience that I had
Okay.
probably 20 years ago. We were discussing some aspects of Sigmund Freud's theory of psychoanalysis, and I had a student who asked a question, and initially it was an appropriate question, and I responded. And she kept going back to the issue until it got to the point it was nonsensical kind of questions being asked. And of course, having a lot of young kids in class, they begin to look and snicker a little bit. So I just basically dismissed class at that time and sat down and talked to her and referred her to an agency that could get her some help. Yeah.
All right. So that's the main thing. I mean, we don't want to upset anybody in the middle of the class, but we certainly want to try
Exactly.
to help a student get the help that they need.
You want to show that unconditional regard for her and respect for her or him, I should say, and make certain that you don't be judgmental and
Right.
encourage them to get the service.
Okay. So if we're approached by a student, or if we have something happen in a class, who do we refer the student to on campus?
Okay. Student services.
Okay.
I believe Chipola has a contract with an agency called Baycare.
Right.
And they will refer to that agency, and that agency will refer to a private practitioner to provide services.
Okay. And this is all anonymous?
Yes.
No one will ever know that the student has had an issue, or that they've been referred to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, right?
Precisely. Everything is done very confidentially.
Okay, all right. Willie, you and I have talked before about the stressors that have happened over the last couple of years with Hurricane Michael and, of course, with the pandemic. But how do you believe that society looks at mental health versus physical health? And do most people look at them the same way?
No, unfortunately not. And this is what we've tried to do with the symposium that we have each year. We try to dispel some of those myths. We're all subject to have mental and emotional kinds of issues by virtue of the fact that we're human beings.
Right.
But most folks are a lot more comfortable dealing with an individual who has a physical disorder than a mental disorder. And in my opinion, they're inseparable.
Right.
Okay? So if someone's hospitalized because they're having some complications from COVID or diabetes or something like that, people are more prone to go and to check on the person
Right.
than it would be someone who's having a psychotic episode with schizophrenia.
Right.
So we're trying to erase that stigma and to make certain that people understand that it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, what your occupation is, or how these things are not important. It's the fact that it can affect any of us at any time.
Right.
Okay. And the fact that we deal with a lot of young people, the prime time of onset for special disorders like schizophrenia is between 17 and 20.
What role do you think the college professor or instructor plays in supporting students' mental health?
Okay. I think professors need to be cognitive of the fact that if a student's performance is not what it has been in the class, if it has some prior experience with the student, to recognize that the performance is decreasing, to recognize the person who used to be involved in discussions is now withdrawn, being quiet, and sometimes just burst out in tears.
Uh-huh.
To be aware of those kinds of things and to offer assistance, to say to the student at the end of class, is there something that I can do for you? Can I help you some way?
Right.
And try to make the appropriate referrals.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think one of the strengths of Chipola College and being on a very small campus and having small classes is that we do develop relationships with students. And just recently, I had a student who she was having some physical issues and was not able to complete the class. And I talked to Bonnie, our new VP for Student Services, and just because we reached out to her and told her we were concerned, she was able to, to make things right and to, have a plan to finish her classes.
Exactly.
So I really do think
That's true.
that's one of our strengths here at
Sure.
Chipola,
Yeah.
being on a small
That
campus.
open door policy, and so students feel comfortable enough to come to you or myself or anyone else and say, I need help.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
sure.
Now, obviously, the 600-pound elephant in the room for the last couple of years has been the pandemic, and I think that's caused a lot of issues for students and for just all of us. I think none of us are as happy as we were before it started. But how do you recommend that students deal with isolation and the regular stressors that happen in college, which is just kind of all these things pile up on top of each other during a pandemic?
Just all the stresses that students face, whether it be academic performance, depression, anxiety, all those things, yeah.
Right.
Well, number one, the pandemic has caused a lot of social isolation, and that's not always good with young people either. But I would say reach out to friends via telephone conversations. We have the Zoom technology that I'm not really that abreast of,
Right.
but that could be another way of reaching out to just not become totally isolated from your peer group. To get involved in even some games that are played virtually, would be certainly a good way to talk to each other, to express feelings. All of those kinds of things are excellent ways to relieve anxiety and stress.
Right. Okay. How have we been over the years? How has the college been equipping and training faculty, staff, and students on the issues of mental health?
Mental health, okay. As I said earlier, we've had the mental health symposium that we offer each year for the last. We skipped one year because of the pandemic.
Okay.
But this is the fourth time that we've had it, I believe. We've also had some invited guests to come on campus and talk about mental health and services that are provided. We have compiled, a manual that has a listing of several different ancillary mental health agencies that actually show in detail services that they provide, whether it be food services or life management or whatever, that we can withdraw from.
Okay.
And they're excited to come on our campus and talk about the services that they offer.
Okay.
So I think that's an excellent source of disseminating that information.
Right. Okay. Great. Willie, how long have you been in the psychology field?
Wow. Probably 40 years.
Okay. And you have a doctorate in psychology. Is that?
My doctorate is in ed leadership.
Okay.
My specialist is in psychology and counseling.
But you're a licensed mental health counselor.
Right.
Okay. So you are legit when it comes to speaking about mental health.
Right.
What is the most common question that people ask about mental health?
Usually, they'll ask things like depression is the most common illness, and typically people will ask, what's the cost of services? Where can you get this service from? Will the insurance pay? Things of that nature.
Right.
Are the most common ones. And I find too, even those who are hesitant initially after they've had a session until they begin to feel more comfortable. I've had some people who will self-pay even though they have insurance that will pay. They think that by self-paying that it will decrease the likelihood the insurance company will have data on them.
Oh, I see.
And that's not the case at all. Yeah.
So no one should be worried about using their insurance.
No, not at all.
Okay,
Not at
for
all.
mental health
Yeah.
services. Okay. Broad question. What does society do that creates stigmas, and what can we do as a college to help break the stigmas about mental health?
Okay, all right. I think talking about it more and talking about the fact that as I said earlier, that we're all human and we're all subjected to different kinds of disorders. We're either affected by mental disorder either directly or indirectly. Okay, when I say directly, we have family members or we have friends that may be afflicted with depression, anxiety, whatever, or ourselves. Or we contribute to the tax base that pay for people who are unable to pay for
Right.
mental health services.
Right.
So we all are in this same box together,
Uh-huh.
and we need to realize that whatever condition we see in other people, that we also susceptible to it.
Right.
And I think that helps to alleviate the stigma. It's going to take us time. It's much better than what it used to be.
Right.
It used to be really, really terrible when people would, and I'm sure it still happens, people in our community would go to a different community, Panama City or
Exactly.
Tallahassee to get services. And some of those individuals come here to
Right.
get services.
Right.
That's beginning to fade significantly.
Yeah. Well, good. Okay. Well, Willie, we've talked about a lot of good stuff, and we do have help for staff and employees and for students, and I think we have a nice framework set up to help people with mental health issues. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
There are questions that anyone has, please feel free to ask at this program if we still
Right.
have it.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to address it.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, we're here with Dr. Willie Spires, the Dean of General Studies, and we're talking about mental health. And thanks for
Sure,
watching.
sure.
Appreciate you participating.
Sure, thank you, appreciate it.